So Psalm 68:3 in the NIV, may the righteous be glad and rejoice before God. May they be happy and joyful. Here's a major translation. Well, let me ask you the question. Should the righteous be glad or should they rejoice? Should they rejoice or should they be happy? Should they be happy or should they be joyful? All of them, because they all essentially mean the same thing. Now, you say, well, wait, if they all mean the same thing, well, I don't mean they have to mean exactly the same thing. You have parallelism in Hebrew especially, and you have the effect of repetition in both Hebrew and Greek, where if you want to say something and just really emphasize it, you repeat it. And don't we do the same thing? How was your vacation? It was spectacular. I mean, it was wonderful. It was glorious. It was refreshing. We went here. The beaches were beautiful. It was so exciting. The restaurants were outstanding. Okay, now, it may sound like you're saying about 6 or 8 or 10 different things, but you're really saying the same thing over and over again with specific applications about, you're trying to convey something about your vacation. It was great. Or it was a major disappointment. It was pretty miserable. It rained the whole time, and because it rained, and because we're going to base our joy or lack thereof on our circumstances, we just sat around and groused about it. And you can come up with a bunch of misery words too, and they're all synonyms, and you're just saying the same thing, but you're using different words to do it. William Tyndale, 1531, said, Evangelion, or what we call the gospel, is a Greek word signifying good, merry, glad, and joyful news. Well, is it good news, or merry news, glad news, or joyful news? Well, it's all of them. And he could have said happy news, it would have been the same, that makes a man's heart glad and makes him sing, dance, and leap for joy. That's what the gospel is. That was his description of the gospel. This is a guy who translated the Greek New Testament and the Hebrew Old Testament in one of the earliest versions. And by the way, if you were ever, just to show you how important Tyndale's translation was, if somebody were just generally to ask the question, what English writer has been quoted or alluded to more in modern history than any other English writer? Probably most people would give an obvious answer. Who would you say? I mean, what would most people say? Shakespeare. Sure, Shakespeare. How many phrases are from Shakespeare that we use them often not even knowing they're from Shakespeare? Well, the true answer to that question is William Tyndale, because he put down the words, let there be light, and am I my brother's keeper? And you say, no, that wasn't Tyndale, that's the Bible. Right. But who chose the words when he was translating from the Hebrew and Greek? William Tyndale did. And the King James Version, I think the statistics are close to 75% of the words are directly the words of William Tyndale, which they used in 1611. And they're translating this, and then they're looking, well, how did Tyndale translate it? Well, let there be light. Okay, let there be light. I mean, they depended heavily on his translation. He was probably a greater scholar than most of those who were involved with the King James Version, though they were certainly scholars as well. But they really relied on him. So he knew what the gospel was. And he knew that meaning. Good news, glad news, merry news. The kind of news that makes you sing, dance, and leap for joy. That's the gospel of happiness.